everybody.
Hello, just do it. Okay. I was hoping my third guest would be here tonight too, but he guess it's running late or emergency happened. But for now, it's just us two lovely gents.
But yeah, so we're covering a very interesting topic and a coincidence because I actually made a video about this on my YouTube channels like last year, I believe, where I was talking about how Best Buy is no longer going to be selling physical media. And then I said in that video that I hate to say it, I think physical media, you know, I hope to be proven wrong, but I think physical media is going to come to an end soon. But yeah, so Vandalia, how about you start this off?
Uh, well, us, us old folks back in the day, we bought these things called CDs
Which is
and video games.
funny because considering my things that piss me off movies, I don't have the best history with CDs.
And then later we were able to watch these. We used these things to watch movies or play games. But later on, we got the ability to watch them or play them without physically purchasing the discs. Now, for the most part, that is not entirely bad. And because you can't really download a CD on your phone.
uh,
So we
well, you kind of can with iTunes,
well,
but
true, technically true.
a digital version, yes.
But I got to admit, back in the '90s, I was one of these people who loved digital media because I learned this about this thing called emulators,
Yep.
which lets me let me play the game on my computer, and save it whenever I wanted to.
But yeah, I will admit, uh, Vandalia here probably will agree. I'm sure Alma will agree. A lot of people will agree. Probably the older people. I'm always gonna have a soft spot for physical media because probably because of the nostalgia factor. I mean, considering that I grew up with Best Buy, yeah, well Best Buy, but uh, I actually meant to say like Blockbuster, movie gallery, and all these movie rental places, and I will never forget like going down the movie alleys and just even looking at the covers of
Yeah, I was checking out blockbuster movies up to 2010.
yeah, funny because it's around 2010, like when Blockbuster started to shut down, primarily because of the rise of Netflix. I mean, Netflix definitely is nice, but the thing that I hate about Netflix and streaming services is the fact that not all their movies are going to be on there
Yeah.
for
Oh, the funny thing about Netflix is it started
forever.
out as a DVD milling place too, like Blockbuster.
Yeah, which is really ironic considering that it started off as that, and then later on it ended up taking down like Blockbuster and all that.
Because now I think Netflix is the least popular of all of the streaming services at this point. I might be wrong though.
What I'm pretty sure it is, considering with the whole password thing, and really like the most popular shows they had, like Stranger Things and all that. A lot of those shows have come to an end, and going back to what I said, like a lot of their movies and shows are not on there forever, which is what I prefer about physical media because
Yeah.
once you have it, you have it.
Of course, there is a downside to physical media too. For for us, again, old people, it's hard to find VCRs anymore to play your old VSS tapes, and pretty soon it might be hard to find DVD players
Yeah,
if
that is
Blu-rays
the
don't play, if
downside. Like,
Blu-rays don't backtrack the DVDs.
yeah, especially with a lot of modern day TVs. A lot of modern day TVs are honestly, a lot of these modern day TVs aren't even compatible with my Xbox 360. So yeah, and then you have to get a special cord just to connect it, and it just makes it really hard. And I get it. Wanting to keep up with the new, but allow people who like to have access to that older stuff.
Yeah, a few years ago, I got this converter cord thing to copy all my home videos into digital media.
Well, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, and also what sucks, even a lot of newer computers, like if you're into console gaming, a lot of them like aren't compatible with a lot of older computer games. Like I remember for an episode of Let's Play a Game, I was trying to play this. There was this game called. It was this game by Lionhead Studios. It's basically like a movie making sim game. I think it was called The Movies. I used to love that game when I was a kid, and I still have my physical copy. And so I was trying to
Yeah,
play that, but my newer computer won't will not play it. And what's crazy, I remember that I bought that game at Target years ago, and recently when I went to Target, I didn't see a single computer game. I didn't see a physical copy anywhere.
yeah.
So
All that brings up a good point. In fact, my new computer doesn't have a CD drive anymore or DVD drive.
yeah, as a matter of fact, even my newer computer doesn't have a CD drive. So because I was forced, like, to purchase one, like I was forced to purchase a CD drive like that I can insert into my computer, and I had to do that just so that I can make DVDs of my first film. So
Is that one of the reasons why you're making a DVD copy or Blu-ray copy of your new film too?
well, there were issues getting the second movie on DVD, and a friend of mine named Ethan was going to do it, but he has a life, and I get it. But me and Junebug finally found somebody who is willing to make DVDs of the second and third movie, so that will be amazing. And I feel bad because I announced the DVD for the second movie way back in 2022, but it's just a lot of issues got in the way. So, and I mean, you gotta admit that for DVDs, it is pretty impressive, like that they lasted as long as they have. Like, I actually remember when DVDs first came out, and that was like 1998, 1999. So the fact that it's lasted this
Yeah.
long, you gotta admit, is
Does
pretty impressive.
does streaming have any competing services like the other like physical media had to compete with before?
Well, I do remember Laserdisc.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. See, VHS had beta that was their thing. Then Laserdisc, I think, was the DVD competitor, and then we had HDVD and Blu-ray.
Yeah, to be honest, growing up, I never knew a single person who had a laser disc. I never knew anybody.
We, I first only time I ever saw one was at school one time where we were watching Jurassic Park in science class, and they had three big discs, giant discs.
Wow, so they had three of them just for one movie?
Yeah, it's like
Wow.
it's kind of like the old PlayStation One games where you had to have 3 or 4 discs to play one game. Remember those? You remember those?
Yeah, I do. You know, that
For
reminds
example, the new FF7 remake release when it came out PS1, that was a 3 disc game.
Yeah, funny you say that because I actually remember when Titanic was released on VHS. That was my first time ever seeing Titanic. I remember because the movie was so long, there was no way that they could put it onto one VHS
Oh
tape.
yeah, I still have that. It's in my house somewhere. A two VHS thing.
Yeah, and the thing that I remember most, I remember I was watching that with my family at my parents' house at that time, and it was at the scene like where Leonardo DiCaprio like is handcuffed to the pole, and then like the water's rising up, and then it's at that scene like where Leonardo says, "Oh shit, oh shit." I will never forget that my parents gave me that look, instantly turned their heads towards me, gave me that look that said, well, they didn't say it verbally. They said it with their facial expression, saying, "Eric, do not repeat what he just said." I will never forget about that. And yeah, and but yeah, I definitely remember watching a lot of movies on VHS as a kid. Like I remember watching The Mask a lot. I remember watching Jurassic Park a lot. Uh, The Lion King a lot of the Disney movies. And actually, as a matter of fact, speaking of the Disney movies, VHS, when I recently rewatched some VHS movies, I noticed like that the quality was utter shit.
Yeah,
But when I rewatched some Disney movies on VHS, the quality was better. And the reason for that is because of those plastic cases that they came in actually did help to preserve it. And what sucks is that there are some movies out there like that were never re-released on DVD or Blu-ray or anything, only released on VHS. So
yeah. I think the problems of the digital media start kind of not started, but physical media started going downhill a little bit. Was when video game console going back to video games real fast. They stopped being backwards compatible.
oh, definitely, yeah, because people have to remember that one of the reasons why PS2 was such a hit, not only could it play DVDs, but it also was backwards compatible like with PS1 games. So yeah, so having a lot of consoles not be backwards compatible was a big mistake. And oh yeah, so sorry to change the subject. We were mentioning how a lot of computers now don't even have the disk drive. I've even heard that a lot of cars now don't even have that either. So so yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
someday CDs may become completely obsolete, which is
yeah,
crazy to think that CDs and discs have been so prevalent for so long.
yeah. You know, I've told the story. I told the story before, but I'll tell it again because it's relevant for this subject. Uh, back I think about 10 years ago now. At this point, I had won a a, a PS4 Gold from Taco Bell. I won a contest.
Hmm.
So like wow, and I wanted to play my favorite game series, the Kingdom Hearts series. However, it was not available on the PS4 yet. And at the time, they said, "quote We probably won't be putting the 1.5."
Simba, Simba, come on.
At the time they told everyone that we will probably not be putting the 1.5 2.5 series on PS4. It's like, okay, if I want to play these games, I gotta buy a PS3 now. So I bought a PS3 by tax refund, bought the two games. I think it was fine, and then all of a sudden they put it on PS4. Like,
Wow.
damn it, people! The only reason I even bought a PS3 was to play those games, and a few months later, I didn't even have to.
I would be pissed.
But now that's why now I have PS2, PS3, and PS4 CD of Kingdom Hearts because of that. I won it from all three systems.
Simba, Simba. Oh gosh, kind of reminds me of a situation that I had. It was back when the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy first came out. It was originally only available on PS4 at that time. So I was going to save up money to get a PS4 just to play that game. But then it got ported to the Xbox One. So I was like, okay, great. So I can save money and I don't have to get a PS4 now. And so, but yeah,
That's the one thing I do wish they had a little bit more, not just compatibility, but convertibility between digital and physical. If you have the physical disc, you can type in a code or something or whatever, and download it on your system, even without a CD, to your system because you already have the physical disc.
yeah. And one of the things that I love about DVDs and Blu-rays and all that, I definitely really love all the special features. And a lot of movies on like streaming services, they don't have any of that. Like watching all of us behind the scenes documentaries actually helps me to get more educated like about the movie that I just saw.
Yeah, I do love. I used to love this on old DVDs. I still have it. I haven't I have DVD in a while, but I used to love watching the director commentary. Where they talk during the movie. And say this has happened here, or you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They did that. Oh, we this scene we did this. You should do
Oh
that
yeah.
for your movie. Director the Eric director commentary.
Yeah, which I actually did a commentary for the second movie, and that's one of the things I was trying to put on the DVD, but all the technical difficulties. But yeah, and one downside to recent physical media, I will admit, a lot of the menus have gotten lazy.
Oh
Like
yes.
the menus have gotten extremely lazy. Like I remember when I was a kid, when I got the Universal Monsters movies on like the Legacy Collection DVDs, like even the menus like would get you into that mood to watch the movies with the atmospheric music and the creepy noise in the background. But when I got the recent Blu-ray collection, the menus are so lazy where it's just clips of the movie
Yeah.
and it's music from the movie. I'm
Yeah.
like, that is so lazy.
A lot of things they didn't have to. A lot of movies don't even have deleted scenes anymore.
Yep.
Like like for example, not but for a good example here, let's take an example. Let's talk about one of your favorite movies, The Lion King, the original one.
Yep.
Their DVD was awesome. It had even had a little mini game there
Mhm.
where you rode the river. You went on a safari ride, either on a river or on
Yeah.
land.
Oh man, I remember that. I loved that one when I was younger. But yeah, it's just such a shame. Like even when I was a kid, even going to the DVD menu for Jurassic Park 3, it was so cool. Like how you just saw like a piece of metal, then the Velociraptor would tear through it, then you would hear it roar, then it would run off. But yeah, a lot of companies have gotten so lazy with the menus. It's a real shame.
I think I think the even before Netflix, I think the first one to do digital media was iTunes. I might be wrong though.
Yeah, iTunes, I definitely remember was really popular, like mid to late 2000s, and even in like the beginning of the 2010s.
Yeah. In fact, I bought not I say physically, it wasn't physically, but I bought on iTunes I bought several TV series and movies that I still technically have on my thing today. I bought all of Boy Meets World, all of Girl Meets World. I bought several. I bought all of the Star Trek movies.
The only Star Trek movie I've ever seen was the 2009 one.
I've 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 watched and owned all 13 of them. Some better than worse.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. But yeah, I primarily know like how the William Shatner mask from that became the Michael Myers mask, but that's besides the point. But yeah,
Go watch our Halloween movie review. Talk about that more.
yeah, we already talked about that, so there's no need to be redundant about that.
Okay, but then again, like I said, then Netflix came around, then Hulu, then Crunchyroll, Funimation, Disney Plus, uh, Peacock, Paramount Plus,
Disney Plus.
yeah, Disney Plus, HBO Max. Oh,
Oh, hey, what's up?
Hello.
But yeah, so one of the things that I was saying is that you may or may not agree with me. A lot of DVD and Blu-ray menus, compared to the menus from like the early 2000s, they've gotten lazy. So, do you have that same opinion?
Yep.
Cool. I'm definitely glad that I'm not the only one. Like, I gave an example when I was a kid, when I had the Universal Monster movies, like the Legacy collections, as a kid. Like, even the DVD menus, like, would really get me in the mood to watch the movies with, like, the creepy, like, atmosphere noise and, like, the creepy, like, just that really creepy noise that would get me in the mood to watch it. And then when I got the Universal Monsters Blu-ray box set, all it is just clips of the movie, music from the movie. I'm like, okay, great. So this is already going to spoil some parts of the movie just by seeing the clips. So great.
Well, the thing with DVD menus is that they were all super creative with their animations. Like,
They
every
were.
movie seemed to make it super unique in some way, and lots of times it would be like the characters from the movie being like self-aware that it was a movie, like especially like stuff I had as a kid. But or again, even if the characters didn't actually interact, it would still be like a fancy animation or something like that. But then with Blu-rays, more often than not, they like to use a stock template. Like Universal and Warner Brothers are particularly guilty of that, where they'll just have like a screenshot of like the like Universal's template has like clips of the movie with the same damn generic menu. And Warner Brothers movies, except for maybe their big budget ones, but like their smaller budget ones, including their TV show releases on Blu-ray, will have the same stock like button menu on the bottom and like the box art of the Blu-ray like as the background.
yeah. Earlier, before you came on, I was talking about one of the few disadvantages of physical media is the ability to play anymore. It's very hard to find a VCR that works to play your old VHS cassettes anymore.
Well, that's not much of a problem, at least for VHS, because really, if we're getting real, I understand the VHS nostalgia because I had that too. Like, there was a time when all I had was VHS, even though I'm younger than you both. And there was a time in high school when I still had a working VCR, and I was like going through like my old childhood tapes and rewatching them. But if we're getting real, VHS is not really the best way to be watching movies.
I
Well,
do agree. And what really sucks, there are some movies where they were only released on VHS, so that's a downside.
Yeah, like, but in those cases, the most of the stuff that was only on VHS, I mean, if
most,
lots of it is not. Lots of people do rip their VHS tapes and they put them online.
yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
did for some of mine. Because for movies, you know, it's a different story. You can always upgrade to DVDs or Blu-rays. But for home videos, you know, that you record yourself, you can't really. You have to go.
Yeah,
someplace
your only real option is to rip them somehow, whether it be direct or like using like a screen capturing device. But yeah, like so VHS I get being tough to play, but at the same time it's a pretty low quality format by today's standards. When we get to like DVDs and Blu-rays, well, DVDs, so much stuff can play them as well. So many disk drives can still play them. Like even like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X can play DVDs. And then Blu-ray, like USB Blu-ray drives for computers are starting to become a little bit more commonplace. I would say 4K Blu-rays are still kind of a luxury right now because only dedicated players, a PS5, a Series X, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure of anything else. Those are the only ones that can play 4K Blu-rays.
Yeah. Then you also missed this. We talked about a lot of some of the reasons why gamers themselves switch to digital media is because games like PS3 or PS4 stopped being backwards compatible, so they had to either buy a new disc itself or just download it or buy it
Can I say
digitally.
one thing?
Yeah.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
Sure.
So, have either of you discussed the people who defend digital by claiming that like 95% of game sales nowadays are digital now?
I
Yeah,
never heard that argument.
So that is what lots of digital bros will use in their defense of digital, saying nobody buys physical, everything's going digital, bro. But here's something to keep in mind. All the reported statistics of digital sales, they're not exclusive to full games. They also include DLC and microtransactions.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, even people who buy physical, they have to pay for digital goods like DLC and microtransactions. Yeah. So undoubtedly, digital sales are higher than physical, but that statistic unfairly skews it way higher in digital's favor than it really is. Like, I was seeing some statistic that the actual number of physical versus digital is that maybe 60% of sales are digital. Like, when we're talking full games. And Alma brings up a good point about digital copies, physical copies eventually going out of print, but then the digital copies usually stay, not always, because delistings are a thing. But
and I talk about this a point too. Is I wish there was more of an overlay between the physical and digital media. Like if you own the physical disc, then you could digitally copy the game on your system.
Can I just...
Sorry, that's the one downside. That's the one downside sometimes of physical media. Like I mentioned in my Kingdom Hearts series, I had to physically buy for the PS2, 3, and 4 KH1. So I wanted to play on each system, you know, because again, not backwards compatible, you know, and you know, so I had to buy one for each system to play on.
Okay, so. It's funny you bring that up. That was going to be a selling point of the Xbox One.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, because one of the features they were touting of the Xbox One is that you would install a game disc and then you wouldn't need the disc no more. You could just play a digital copy off your Xbox. But there was a catch. Remember how the Xbox One was infamously going to bar used games?
I remember that.
That what like I mean there were a couple of things the Xbox One was going to do, like the DRM 24-hour DRM check.
Yes, that was one.
Well, barring used games was on Xbox's hit list, and the all digital install was the big reason for that.
It's funny you mentioned that, because that topic about the 24-hour online thing, was the subject of my very first Talking Time with Caffeine episode ever.
Well, obviously after the backlash, Microsoft had to reverse that, which meant that now you need the discs in order. Like, it's funny, with the Xbox One and Series X, my understanding is they still do the full. Well, they started doing like the full installs from the discs starting that generation. Like PS3 and 360, like you weren't really installing data unless you wanted faster load times. But PS4 and Xbox One, you had to install like the whole game data onto the hard drive in order to play. Which leads us to believe, which in my opinion makes me think that PlayStation may have been planning the same thing, but they were being a little strategic and they were waiting to see how people reacted to Xbox revealing it. And when Xbox got the backlash, PlayStation was like, okay, we're not doing this now. And they did that to win people over. But whatever the case, it's funny because when they eventually introduced backwards compatibility onto the Xbox One for 360 and original Xbox games, really, you're not installing anything from the discs. You're just using your discs as a key to get a digital download. And, I mean, you can't play them as they are digital. Like, you still need the discs to basically be like a key to reactivate it. But, yeah.
Yeah, I wish more did that. Yeah, with Xbox and, well, except for PS1, for Xbox and and PlayStation, they have the same CD type thing, so it's easier to do. With Nintendo, however, they went from cartridges to CDs to little mini things.
Well, they went from cartridges to the little mini CDs on the GameCube. Then the Wii and the Wii U, they had like DVD looking discs, but they were not DVDs. They were like Nintendo made optical discs or something like that. And then they went back to cartridges with the Switch.
Of course, it didn't starting with the Wii and the Wii U, they started doing digital stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
I think. But,
with the original Wii, they never put any full physical, like full release physical games on the Wii shop. Like, it wasn't until the Wii U when they started doing that. But even PlayStation and Xbox didn't do that at first. They only started doing it for like full disc-based games, like maybe near the end of their life cycles.
Yeah, I think the only game I ever bought for my Wii U or Wii was I bought Super Mario Brothers 3 digital version of it once.
Well, how I got a lot of like VC games for the Wii and the Wii U, and I hate Nintendo's current way of doing it by making you subscribe to their subscription service to get classic games, and they don't even update it that often. Like, here's a statistic that is real. At least 90%, maybe even like more than 95% of retro games, meaning stuff before the PS4 and Xbox One, they're just gone.
Yeah.
Well, they're not gone, but in the actual sense, like, that's why emulation exists and like old physical copies. But in terms of actually being able to officially buy them in a way that supports the developers and publishers, they are gone.
Yeah, that's the one thing I hate about Nintendo is that they stopped doing. like Super. I hear an echo.
I don't hear one, so.
Anyway, Super Nintendo had the Super Game Boy, lets you play Game Boy games. Then the GameCube had an attachment that let you play the Game Boy Advance games. But then the future ones like the Wii U, and the Switch never advanced to have a add-in for the DS or 3DS games.
Well, the closest thing the Wii U had is that they did add original DS games to like the eShop, but that shut down now.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
And again, that just goes to the point that you don't own, unless you don't own, they can take away your digital copies.
Well, I guess semi-fortunately, I think Nintendo does let you re-download anything you bought from the 3DS and Wii U before they shut down. It's just you can't buy anything from there anymore. But developers and the storefronts have proven that they are fully capable of taking away your ability to download. So
well, that's a shame. And and it reminds me of how a lot of games I would buy on like the App Store and whatnot on iOS. A lot of these games I love playing, but
on iOS, yeah, many of that. iOS is extremely guilty of delisting and taking away your ability to download.
Yes, and I was just about to get into that. I remember loving Jurassic Park Builder for the longest time, but then iOS shut down that game in like 2020 or so, I believe. And I remember being so bummed out. And that's one of the things I now hate about digital media is the fact that they get to decide when to take the game down, and when the game's down, you can never ever go back to playing it, and that really sucks. And that's what I love about physical media is the fact that you can always go back to it. Like say the Sega Genesis, for an example. Like that was a console that now that was the console of my childhood, and and because we physically still have Sega Genesis, that's a console like that I can always go back to. But when it comes to digital media, like the case of Jurassic Park Builder and iOS and all these other games that iOS got rid of, once they're gone, hopefully somebody was smart enough. Well, like what Alma said. Hopefully,
yeah, that's the thing. What do you guys think of? You think emulation is a good thing or a bad thing?
Emulation. I said this stance on Twitter. Basically, if you're going to use emulation solely, so the big scandal with emulation right now is that Nintendo is trying to sue Yuzu, which is a emulator for the Switch. And the thing on that front is the Switch is currently in production putting out new games, and there are some people touting smugly that they are just simply pirating games to play on Yuzu. Like pirating new games that you can still officially purchase just because they don't feel like paying for them. So that is what Nintendo's trying to sue Yuzu for, because, well, they don't want these people stealing. So in that sense, you should not be using emulation for that purpose. But where emulation becomes a good thing is for preserving games that have no official way to buy them anymore. In particular, like retro games that are now extremely expensive because of scalpers on eBay, or in some cases, games that never even got a release. Like my friend Jado, he is going to be doing a game review of the unreleased PS1 port of Superman 64. Like,
Oh,
that game never came out. You can't play it on real hardware, but because somebody leaked it online, now you can play it on emulators. And another reason why emulation, I think, is important is because of the way you can improve the games you play on them. Because, number one, nobody said anything about you needing to go to a sketchy website and get a hold of games for free, because did you know, like, say I take Silent Hill 2 on the PS2, I could take out this disc, put it in my piece in like a DVD drive for my PC, and I could play it on PCSX2 right off the disc. So but anyways, what I was getting to with emulation is that you can enhance these older games and basically almost make them like remasters, especially when companies refuse to make real remasters to make these games more playable on modern TVs. Because of course, these older games were made for made for standard definition. If you try to put them like on a big HD TV, they're gonna look blurry as hell. They're gonna hurt your eyes, but if you go on an emulator, lots of emulators have upscaling, which like AI is absolutely horrid. Like we had like the Willy Wonka freaking thing in the news recently, but I don't know if AI uses I don't know if upscaling uses AI or anything like that. But basically, emulators have the ability to take the graphics of these older games and basically do what they can to upscale them so they look better on modern TVs. Basically preserving the classics and making them look the best they've ever been.
Yeah, like you said, sometimes it's the only way to play it. Like, for example, again, KH, you either have to buy an old DS system to play it, or you emulate the days and coded games. It's the only way to play them.
Basically. And on top of that, another great thing that's come out of emulation would be ROM hacks. Now, ROM hacks, it's a bit complicated to go into like where they stand, like with like legal stuff. Like I would say, but basically, ROM hacks breathe a lot of new life into older games, like giving you new experiences with them, like using the engines to create new games entirely.
Yeah, like I think it's a ROM hack. I played a Zelda game, Legend of Zelda original game with South Park characters in it instead of the Link.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I also even remember people made mods of Left 4 Dead 2, and I even remember somebody actually recreated the Pirates of the Caribbean ride like at Disneyland.
Yeah.
And somebody actually made that into a level like for Left 4 Dead 2. I'm like,
somebody made that for like I think I know what map you're talking about. Like I think that was like Disney in general. Like they had Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion, Splash Mountain.
Oh man, that was so awesome.
Like that's why the modding community is so great, and thankfully, lots of developers have actually appreciated mods, albeit mainly for like Steam.
So
it's mainly Bethesda who got greedy about it and tried to charge for them.
So are randomizers like ROM hacks?
Yes. Unless a developer includes it as like a base game thing, which sometimes they do, not often, but...
So, in your opinion, what's some good things about digital media? We're talking about all the bad stuff about them and physical. What's anything good about digital media that you like?
About the only thing I can think of is that you just don't have to swap discs. And even then, that's just sort of a lazy boy thing. I mean, I guess one more thing that could be said about digital is I know people harp on how games often launch unfinished nowadays, but at the very least, with the age of digital, it's at least not hard for stuff to get fixed. Because the thing with old, like the PS2 era and before, when a game was released on disc, that was usually it. Like, if a game had any game-breaking bugs or whatnot, usually it would be there to stay.
Yep.
Like,
and that's what they
if you were lucky, the bugs would be fixed like in a greatest hits re-release or something like that. But that was not normally the case.
Usually you find a way to work around the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and multiple CDs. We talked about this earlier. With Alma mentioned this. Me and Alma talked about this. About, for example, the new FF7 game. When it first came out for PS1, it was a 3-disc thing. If you lost one of those discs, then you were screwed. And then Eric brought up Titanic was a 2 VHS movie.
You know, it's funny. Multi-disc movies are actually still a thing, though it depends on the movie. Like, my Blu-ray copy of the Lord of the Rings Extended Edition split the movies onto 2 discs.
Alma says Black Dahlia laughs at 3 discs and raises you 8. So about you, Eric, you've been quiet for a while.
Is he still there?
I am not sure. Yeah, we're talking about the different. Yeah, when you were coming on, we were talking about the different digital stuff. We talked about how I think it started digital started with iTunes, and then Netflix got in the system, and then the other ones joined afterwards.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you talked about, like, I think I briefly heard you talking about streaming when I first came in. Basically, all signs point towards the streaming bubble being about to burst. Like, basically, companies are starting to realize that streaming is not profitable. Like Netflix and Disney Plus are now restricting account sharing and always raising their prices. Paramount Plus has been delisting a shitload of content. HBO Max has been delisting a lot of content.
And then they can also buy to their route now. Like, I think like a few years ago, for animation, I think Crunchyroll bought out Funimation.
Oh, Crunchyroll is basically trying to get a monopoly on the anime market right now. Like, they bought out Funimation, and very recently they closed the Funimation streaming service, and they confirmed if you redeemed or bought any digital copies on Funimation, you would not be getting them back. Also, Funimation, they didn't stop at Funimation. When I got into the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise, I got a lot of my Blu-rays from a website called Right Stuff Anime. Because Right Stuff Anime made the Blu-rays for Gundam. And guess what? Crunchyroll bought them. They don't exist anymore.
Yeah. So we were talking about how it's ironic that Netflix started out as a disc milling thing. You could buy discs and mill it in.
And fun fact, Blockbuster once had the chance to buy Netflix, but they didn't.
I remember when right at the same time Blockbuster went out of business, at least in my area, they started doing the milling discs too. We could get discs and mill them back or whatever.
Well, by then it was too late.
Yeah. I think I still have some Blockbuster discs in my thing that I never returned because the Blockbuster my Blockbuster closed down. So so I own some Blockbuster discs now.
Sweet.
Don't tell anybody.
And I'm sure the last remaining Blockbuster in the world's not going to care. Because I believe there is still one Blockbuster that remains.
Yeah, I think it's on the West Coast somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere over there. And they've had a pretty good sense of humor about like what happened to like the rest of the Blockbusters. As well as Netflix's shenanigans.
Yeah, we're talking about. I was going the Blockbuster all the way up to 2010. Getting movies there, my area.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had stopped going by then. So where is Eric?
He said he got a phone call.
Oh.
So why do you think it was just because of money reasons they stopped being backwards compatible old gaming systems?
That is a question for the ages. Like for PS, like even when they weren't backwards compatible with everything, like when PS3 dropped PS2 support, like during that era, they were still releasing like lots of older games for purchase digitally. Like the PS3, PSP, and Vita had a massive library of PS1 and even PS2 games that you could buy digitally and download. And like the Wii and Wii U had the Virtual Console, the VC. And like original, I mean, I felt like the 360 dropped it pretty quickly because they were releasing some like original Xbox games for download. But then during the I don't know what happened with Sony. When the PS4 came out, they just stopped importing their classics library, and I will never understand why. Like, eventually they started putting like select PS2 games on the PS4, but unlike what Xbox was doing, where they were getting like as many people involved as possible, PlayStation was like doing the bare minimum. Like the only PS2 games that were on the PS4, they added Alma, You Are Right, because the CEO of PlayStation, who's about to retire, he flat out said that was the reason they weren't doing a lot of old game re-releases. But even though he's about to go out the door, Sony hasn't really changed their stance. So what happened was PS2 games basically on PS4 only came from Sony themselves, and not even the well-known games for the most part. Like it was mainly the obscure ones. Then there was Rockstar Games, SNK, and THQ Nordic. One single Capcom game, one single Namco game, which was a pre-order bonus, never sold on its own. That was basically it. Now on PS5, they did start as like an incentive to like join like their highest tier of PS Plus Premium. They started adding a bunch of PS1 and PSP games. And the tragedy is that these emulators for the PS1 and PSP are pretty good. They do upscaling pretty well. They got a rewind and save state feature. And they're not even doing much with them. Like, those third party, like basically the only games coming out on PS5 for these emulators are from Sony themselves and Disney. Sony and Disney. Nobody else is supporting it. Like, we got a handful of Namco games that are exclusive to Premium. You can't buy them separately until like a certain window of time's passed. One single Capcom game with Resident Evil Director's Cut, which is still Premium exclusive, last I checked. No other companies want to support it.
And then we get the down thing is people start noticing this, like I think a few years ago, that even if you buy the game online or digital, apparently you don't own it. You don't technically own it. They can take it away from you. Like,
Well, we were talking about that, but you know what's also tragic about this case?
What?
For every game that they add, every PS1 and PSP game that they've added to the PS5, Sony even has a system in place to where if you bought that PS1 or PSP game back during the PS3 days, like if you were actually playing them as a digital download on your PSP or Vita, or if you were playing them on your PS3, they are honoring the past purchases.
Oh, good.
Like if they get added to PS5, you can just download them for free. And now that I think about it, that might be the reason not many publishers want to support it. Because of Sony wanting to do that, publishers are like, I want money. All these owners who have these old games, no, they got to pay for them again. What do you mean what do you mean that you want to honor the passport? No, we want money.
You gotta buy the new. You gotta buy it. You gotta download it again on this new system.
Like that's the best explanation I could come up with. I mean, when Namco keeps their releases exclusive to premium, you can, even if you own the games from back then. Like I had Tekken 2 from the PS3 days, and I was not allowed to download that unless I had premium. So. And even still, I'm guessing Namco, that's their one way of compromising, making it premium exclusive. But, I don't know. Like, that's the reason why emulators are so prevalent. That's the reason why ROM sites are so prevalent. Because these stupid companies are like, and the sad thing is, I don't even think it would cost much to get these games onto the PS5 because you're not even putting any costs into development. They're going on fucking emulators. Like,
hey,
it might be a licensing fee, but that's it.
Hey, sorry about that. I had a really important phone call that I had to take. So, what all did I miss?
A lot. We're talking about. I think the last time we were talking about was playing old systems on the new systems, old games on the new systems, and how some of them don't want to do that because it's because of money.
And long story short, I was ranting about how the PS5 has excellent emulators for the PS1 and PSP. And yet barely any games have released on the PS5 that take advantage of these emulators. And I was trying to think of reasons why developers don't want easy revenue, because I guarantee you the costs for getting these games on PS5 are not that high. And my understanding is, like, the one theory I thought about is because Sony is honoring past purchases from, like, the PS3 days, these greedy developers want people to buy the games again, and thus they don't want to release them. And that's just Sony. Like, Nintendo has all their emulators on Switch. You can only play those games if you subscribe to their membership. If you pay for their membership. And then, like, I think it's NES, Super Nintendo, and original Game Boy for, like, the low-tier membership. And then if you pay, like, $40 more for the high-tier membership every year, you get Nintendo 64, Genesis, and GBA. But the thing is, the library of games that they put on that service is, again, extremely limited. Then Xbox was actually pretty good with, like, the 360 backwards compatibility program. The original Xbox was kind of lacking, but I guess a lot of that went to, like, licensing costs. And now they're not supporting it anymore. And matter of fact, delistings. The 360 storefront is going down. And very, very slowly, lots of digital re-releases of Xbox backwards compatible games have been going down too. So Xbox had it the best, and now they're just joining the ranks of Sony and Nintendo of just not caring.
So what's your opinion, Eric?
Yeah, I think I definitely would agree with him about all that. But yeah, I definitely think we covered a lot of really good things here. Do
So
you think they will go full Sega? It's possible, but yeah,
what's that mean, full Sega?
what I think Alma means is that they will stop making consoles and that they will become a developer of games.
It was theorized that Microsoft was going down that route with Xbox. Like they announced that select Xbox games were going to become third party. Like there were grand rumors that even more games were going third party. But the truth of the matter is, even though it looks like it's a lot more restrained than what the rumors were claiming, like it's only like a select few games that they're putting multi-platform stuff like
Yeah,
Hi-Fi Rush.
yeah, I saw.
But the possibility is still there because Xbox is not doing well.
Yeah, I saw a skit about that on YouTube. Some YouTube skit where they're talking about how they're going to put their games on other systems now or something.
Like, yeah, that's what Xbox is doing right now. PlayStation is in a better spot, but the thing with PlayStation that some people have been discussing, like, I don't know if you've seen the murmurings on Twitter, but there have been a crap ton of layoffs with so many publishers, so many developers, and the wide belief is we might be heading towards a second video game crash
Like the one from the 80s.
from the one from the 80s, except on a grander scale, because the thing to remember about the 83 crash is that it was basically a North American thing only. This would be like on a worldwide scale. Like maybe not in Japan, because I noticed lots of Japanese companies, like people listed a bunch of Japanese companies like Nintendo, ironically Sega.
Sony.
I don't know about Sony. Sony might be in the list of ones that aren't doing so hot. In fact, they had big layoffs. Like Nintendo, Sega, Capcom, maybe Namco, and even then, there's still some Japanese developers and publishers affected by that could be affected. Like Sony, Sony's like trying to transition to like an American company or like Western. Square Enix is definitely not good because don't forget they are the studio that sold off so many valuable IPs for NFT money.
Yeah.
And Konami is Konami. Like
Yeah,
they're trying to get back into making games, but they've been, let's be charitable and say, hit and miss.
yeah. I don't know if Square Enix can do what they did before and make their last game be their savior game, if that rumor was true or not.
I mean, Square Enix has been putting out a good game every now and then, but it's like for every good game they put out, it's like there's a massively shitty one that just drains all the profits. Like when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, it sold gangbusters, but how much money they wasted on Marvel's Avengers kind of sucked away all the profits, for example.
You're still hoping to make it back again with the new Rebirth thing, I'm guessing.
Well, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has been doing very well. In fact, I have it on my TV right now.
That's the thing. Sometimes they make so much money or something, they're like, let's experiment. Oh, that failed miserably. Let's go back to what works again.
And the reason why lots of game studios are kind of failing nowadays is for the same reason why movies are sort of failing. That in the old days, they had like a mixture of different budgeted games. You would have your big budget games, but then also a lot of mid-tier budget games and a lot of low budget games. Nowadays, it's like the big publishers want to rely exclusively on the big blockbuster games only.
Yeah.
And movies are doing the same thing. Like, last year was an incredibly bad year for movies in theaters. And
Yeah.
a lot of that was in part to the ridiculous budgets for lots of movies. Like, stuff like Fast and Furious 10 had almost like $400 million budgets where you have to make like double of what the budget was and then some just to break even. So even if the movies were like mega successes, if they're not like super ultra Titanic levels of money, they're going to fail because of their stupidly inflated budget. It's the same thing with games. They drop so much unnecessary money into these big ass games that aren't even always good, that where they have to sell over 10 million copies just to see any kind of profit. And simply put, not every game is going to do that. So lots of games, movies, and everything have been bombing, even when they sell a lot.
Yeah, to back my other point, I guess it comes to your point too. Maybe I'm not sure, but like for example, movie example, Star Trek 4. It was an epic success. They made tons of money with it, even enough money to start the Next Generation series. And then they made Star Trek 5. That money went back on the drain again because Star Trek 5 sucked. It's a comedy movie, however, good comedy movie, but as a blockbuster, it wasn't anything. After the Star Trek 4 success.
Eric, input?
Yeah, I definitely would agree with all that, but yeah, sorry, I'm just really tired because.
Before we go, example, the first Jurassic Park movie was awesome, then they made the sequels.
Yeah, in my opinion, the best sequel would be The Lost World. I mean, it has some very suspenseful scenes, very memorable scenes. It feels the most like the first movie while still being different and not just a repeat. Jurassic Park 3, I made clear is garbage. But Jurassic World, I can watch it. It's fun. But yeah, Fallen Kingdom, that bidding scene is really absurd. So you're mean to tell me that it costs more to make the movie versus to buy a real life dinosaur? Are you kidding me? And Jurassic World Dominion was extremely disappointing. Like, they finally had the chance to do something different with the franchise. And what do? Have the characters go to an island. Like, are you kidding me? You finally have the chance to do something different with dinosaurs living on the mainland and humans now having to coexist with dinosaurs. And that's the best that they can do. And they brought back the original cast.
So wrapping it up, what is your on the physical versus digital media? What's your final say?
Physical, like, basically, I know that companies are now trying to seemingly make a concentrated effort to kill physical media for good. From Best Buy apparently trying to discontinue physical movies, to Walmart wanting to not carry physical games, to Microsoft apparently wanting to discontinue their physical media, to Disney stopping physical media in-house and handing it off to Sony. Like, regardless of what these companies are doing, I am sticking with physical for as long as I can. Like, even if I have to pay a little extra, I am sticking with physical discs until the day where it's decided that companies are not going to have them around anymore, and I hope the companies are taught a valuable lesson from that, and I hope people do freaking vote with their wallets and not support digital as much as they can. And really, with delistings, and games and movies like going extinct outside of unofficial sources, it's like at that point you gotta advocate for the unofficial sources, because it's like, okay, if you don't want our money, fine, we're just gonna we're gonna preserve this elsewhere.
What about you, Eric? What's your final say on this?
I do agree, physical media all the way. While digital is nice, it is nice because with some digital, that's how I was able to watch Terrifier for the first time and a lot of other movies that I never got to see. Digital has its advantages. It can save you space in your apartment, house, or whatever. But we've already listed the huge disadvantages of digital, and I have that nostalgia factor for physical media. So honestly, I'm gonna go with physical.
All right. So, anything coming up on your channels that you want to talk about?
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm really tired. So me and Junebug Films are going to interview Adam Marcus. He was the director of the ninth Friday the 13th movie called Jason Goes to Hell. We're going to interview him. And we also have an interview with Bradley Dunn, who was King Kong in Big Jack Films' King Kong remake. And of course, I have the third Things That Piss Me Off movie being edited right now. It's almost done being filmed. It's almost done, which is great because making the third movie's been a lot harder than the other movies. I definitely will say that. But the thing that saved the third movie from being canceled is my persistence. So, to anybody who feels discouraged, just remember persistence is key. But yeah, celebrating 15 years of my channel. And on my actual 15th anniversary, April 19th, I'm planning on doing a celebration live video about it. So, yeah, 15 years of me on YouTube.
On Snick, I saw that you were playing the new FF7. Are you going to be streaming it?
No.
Damn, I'm hoping to watch it. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally I'll play stuff on Twitch, maybe, but I don't really put commentary. I don't know. I just don't feel like I have the. I just don't feel like I can carry stuff on my own.
Yeah, that when we used to do that, I think I was the main talker usually when we used to play game. I used to play games together.
But I did appear in my friend Jado's review of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I helped him play through the game with another pal of ours, Miles. And yeah, the video turned out really well.
Right. As for me, tomorrow I'm doing a special episode where we're going to talk about dinosaurs and their fun clade. And then next Saturday, I am celebrating my 400th episode of Talking Time with Caffeine, where we talk about the Emancipation Proclamation, the document that freed the slaves. We're going to be discussing that and its effects in today's society. But that's for tomorrow, next Saturday. Hope you all have a good night or day or whatever you're doing. And remember, buy physical if you can.
Yep.
While you still have a choice. But anyways, never stop learning. Enjoy the randomness. I'll see y'all tomorrow if you're coming. Bye.
See ya.